Man, this game's awesome. That's what anyone would say if shown cherry-picked footage of a game featuring a badass, scantily clad ninja slicing through enemies in beautifully crafted oriental environments. But much like our bare-legged heroine, this particular game holds a secret. As you might have guessed by now, I love the PS2 era of gaming. I love it so much that I made a list of 20 different games I missed out on during the platform's prime. Games that, for one reason or another, have always been on my radar. With the masters of hardcore action at Tecmo resurrecting the mainline Ninja Gaiden series and boldly declaring this year to be the year of the ninja, it only felt right to kick off 2025 by reviewing Red Ninja, End of Honor. Well, kickoff might be a stretch, considering it's already, late March? Early April? Not much I could do about those drone-induced power outages. But hey, we're here now, and that's what matters. Developed by Tenchu Studios and published in the West by Vivendi Universal in early 2005, Red Ninja End of Honor was a critical disaster at launch. Whenever I research a game for this channel, I love digging up old reviews to get a sense of what people thought when it was first released. And let me tell you, some of these reviews were wild. Games Magazine didn't hold back. A poor Tenchu wannabe that simply fails to deliver enjoyment. We played it because we had to. You don't. A blogger named Big Boss Hayabusa minced even fewer words. So what we have here is a clusterfuck of jank. Every aspect of controlling the main heroine works against you. I'm not the type to get filtered by jank. I like jank, but this is shit. And of course, IGN went for the lowest hanging fruit. Kurenai is exactly what a marketing department would create to appeal to 12-year-olds. She's incredibly busty and wears barely anything. Buddy, I'm at a point in my life where going back to being 12 years old sounds like a pipe dream, and I can't see a world where a barely dressed sword-wielding throat-slitting ninja doesn't appeal to me more than to some kid. What are kids even into these days? Crypto market? That being said, you've gotta give it to Tenchu Studios' marketing team. They knew exactly how to sway people like me into picking up Red Ninja over, I don't know, Shinobito? And I'm sure that I'm not alone in thinking that if I am going to pick up a janky stealth action Tenchu wannabe, I might as well pick the one with a hot girl on the cover. Much like Oni, this game's cover art is striking. The contrast of reds, blacks and whites, the clean use of negative space, the beautiful hand-drawn artwork, it's rare to see cover art this gorgeous nowadays. Shout out to DK, the concept artist for Red Ninja, and fun fact, the original Nier, who recently shared never-before-seen artwork for this game on Twitter. Absolute mwah. Also, I'm happy to report that during the writing phase of this review, DK actually retweeted my snippet from the opening of this video. That's right, my gameplay got the official seal of approval from one of the game's creators, so you know you're in the right place. X.com epic search, give it a follow, will ya? No politics, no engagement farming, just good old-fashioned video game thoughts and pictures of my cat. And while you're at it, join my Discord channel too, bonus stage. The link's in the description. Before diving in, there was one small problem with me starting this project. As return viewers of my channel might recall, in my Oni review I did mention that I'm quite bad at stealth games. That's why I actually had never attempted a playthrough of a Tenchu game, so nope, you won't hear any comparisons to that franchise in this video. Much like Tenchu, many other iconic PS2 and PS3 era stealth games eluded me, the likes of Metal Gear, Hitman, and many others I missed out on because of my quote-unquote skill issues. And only in the recent years did I start to overcome my demons and find enjoyment out of constantly save-scumming, failing, waiting and observing. Playing the reboot/sequel of Hitman in particular helps me find the true appreciation for the genre. It taught me that you are meant to fail at first, that these stealth games are designed in the way for you to learn through trial and error until you finally devise the perfect killing spree, utilizing your knowledge, characters' toolkits, level designs and enemies' AI patterns to your fullest advantage, devising your own perfect silent assassin run. So now, having spent over 10 hours of my life beating Red Ninja and of Honor, I am here. And I can confidently proclaim that my expectations of it were crushed and shattered, as it turned out to be a beast of a completely different, devious kind. And I'm here to tell you all about it. So please sit back and enjoy my review of Red Ninja and of Honor. The game sets stage by covering the tragic backstory of our boy-seducing, pant-inducing main heroine Kurenai. As a child, she grew up under the care of her father, a prominent engineer who made a name for himself during the Warring States period in feudal Japan. Which means, yes, we will hear and see the ever-present ambitious figure of Nobunaga Oda. Kurenai's father, however, serves under the banner of Shingen Takeda, who stands against Nobunaga. Being the skilled engineer that he is, alongside his partner Ginbei, they were the first to build a terrible firearm of mass destruction, a complete game changer that helped his master's army wipe a whole battlefield of opposing forces in mere seconds. Lord Shingen, however, finds the mere idea of using such a weapon blasphemous, as it practically erases hundreds of years of training, dedication and skill, so he orders its destruction, much to the frustration of his more forward-looking and comically bratty son. Having found out about the weapon's existence, the evil ninja clan of Black Lizard, who serve under Nobunaga, are set to assassinate Kurenai's father and steal the blueprints of his invention to change the odds in their master's favor. Young Kurenai not only witnesses her father's brutal execution, but is also caught by the Black Lizard ninjas. They torturously hang her on a tree with the ninja weapon Tetsugen, that she herself will soon iconically use, and is left there to die. Days pass and she is miraculously found by her soon-to-be teacher, Master Chiyome, who rescues and takes Kurenai under her care. Chiyome, who is the head of a ninja clan serving under Lord Shingen, becomes a motherly figure for the girl, teaching her the ways of kunoichi arts. Time passes by and now grown-up and matured Kurenai is ready for her first mission: infiltrate the town of Kuretsubo and assassinate a vassal of Oda Nobunaga's forces. With the stage being set, we, the players, are finally taking control of our beautiful avatar and... Oh man. What's up with the controls? Few things jump straight up as I first try to move Kurenai around. The first was the noticeable input delay. A good few microseconds pass in between your press of a button and Kurenai doing what you ordered her to do. Alright, I thought to myself, maybe the input delay is because of the PS2 wireless DualSense adapter that I've been using ever since devastating my DualShock 2 during the Oni playthrough. Luckily, being the resourceful person that I am, I did have some spare original PS2 controllers in my closet, so I hooked up a practically brand new DualShock 2 and... nope. The delay in between your analog push and Kurenai's moving forward was still there. Bundled together with a huge dead zone that for some reason so many PS2 games have, and accompanied by the X-axis camera control inversion that you can't turn off, operating Kurenai felt more like driving a truck than being in control of a nimble ninja girl. I guess this game truly is the Gran Turismo of hot ninja babe simulators. Which would have been fine in its own right if the game didn't also challenge players with literal Super Meat Boy levels of platforming challenges that require frame-perfect execution in some instances. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For now, let's observe our first level, and man, this game looks gorgeous. Amongst all the games I've reviewed so far, this one takes the lead in terms of the graphical fidelity and the atmosphere. Simple but beautiful locations are positively filled with warm lighting, exotic sound effects and traditional Japanese music, which all combines in an enveloping package that embraces you as you're wandering around the levels, stalking your next prey. I particularly enjoyed the little interactive elements sprinkled around the levels, like the fallen leaves that get in the air as you run past them. Small little details like that truly make you feel like you're a part of this world and not just a video game character running around video game levels. which makes it so sad that none of this beauty could be properly appreciated through well-refined camera controls. Here's one of my two least original statements about this game. The camera controls is by far the worst offender in this game. It's clunky, inverted, having a huge dead zone, and an odd acceleration that makes you constantly readjust its angle. Sometimes it feels like the game chooses the worst possible camera position during challenging fights, adding to the frustration. Thankfully, I very soon found out that the lock-on button that was bound to R1 automatically centered the camera behind Kurenai, so it quickly went on to become my best friend, providing a much more accessible and snappy way to readjust the camera's positioning after being swayed by the game's programming quirks. Going back to our first level, I like how neatly it's designed around folks like me, who are bad at stealth games. Tutorial-wise, you get these butterflies that teach you the game's basics through cryptic messages, mysteriously left by another ninja who we will soon meet. At the same time, the enemies are neatly designed to pose a challenge to novice players, but still being feeble enough that if you miss the stealth kill, which you will do, you will still be able to easily dispatch of them using your Tetsugen, the very same weapon used to hang Kurenai when she was a child. It's during these early stages the game teaches you that your positioning in relation to your enemies matters. When in stealth mode, you naturally have to get up close and personal to perform silent assassination of your target. However, if the enemy squad notices you, your best option is to put some distance between you and the opposing forces, as up close Kurenai would only utilize her small wakizashi, a bad option when dealing with multiple surrounding foes. When put in distance, however, Tetsugen becomes available, and that is a much deadlier tool in our possession. The way it works is actually quite brilliant. Once you lock onto an enemy, you have to briefly wait till the target reticule flashes red, signaling the player that they're ready to throw Tetsugen and latch it onto the foe. During the throw animation, you can also aim with your left analog stick up and down, selecting which body part it will be attached to. Once the enemy is in your grasp, you can spam the kill button, which, provided the victim is at the sufficient health threshold, will instantly kill them by ripping their respective body part off. Depending on where you aimed, you would witness different outcomes, from the enemy's torsos being cut in half to a more gruesome death of having their feet torn off, leaving them to endure their final moments crawling and asking for help before swiftly bleeding to death. Man, at times this game can be quite gruesome, if not downright edgy. Though Tetsugen makes this game practically baby tier in terms of difficulty early on, there is a good reason for you to dispatch of the enemies utilizing stealth instead. Doing so guarantees that the assassinated enemy will drop a ninja tool for you to use. The ninja tools mostly serve a supportive role. Even the offensive ones such as kunai are best used for distracting your enemies rather than hurting them, as damage they deal is tiny and not worth the usage. There are also healing items and more tools that are introduced to the player as the games go on, with the more useful ones found by exploring the levels. Those range from smoke bombs that allow you to escape, to the likes of high jump and invisibility scrolls. So the toolkit in our arsenal is quite vast and allows for different playstyles and ways of approaching your objectives. I can't say for sure if this was the game designer's intention, but I quickly adopted the playstyle of going in aggressively at the start, spending my resource and killing off as many enemies with Tetsugen as possible. Only as my supplies dwindled, I would turn to stealth mechanics in order to replenish my resources, which was a tactic that carried me through the first third of the game. However, as it went on, the enemies became much tankier, which led to Tetsugen becoming a less viable option. Bundled together with the fact that the opposing forces would often come in higher numbers and in enclosed spaces, some encounters posed a real challenge if not handled in a stealthy way, as there was practically no way for me to space them out and use Tetsugen effectively. This led me to becoming more and more focused on learning how to refine my stealth approach, which at that point was much easier since I had already taken grasp over our main heroine's controls. And that's a pretty good game design. But then comes the level design, and we do have to talk about it. After all, this is a stealth-focused game we're talking about, and for such games, the level design is essential in my book, and my book is leather-covered. Red Ninja is split into chapters comprised of a set of mini-stages of various complexity, each in turn split by a loading screen. Usually your end goal in this game is to go from the starting point of the level to some door or another cavity in the wall that leads you to the next stage. Red Ninja is rarely bothered with how many alarms you've triggered or how many enemies you've killed along the way. As long as you fulfill all the requirements to exit the stage, you're clear. Those requirements may vary. Sometimes it involves killing an elite guard holding a key, some other passing an environmental challenge or doing light puzzle work. All that sounds good on paper, however there's one glaring issue. Some levels just feel plain unfinished. Most sandbox-style levels, where you actually have some choice as to how to make your approach and can plan a perfect assassination route, are for the most part crammed into the first half of the game, with the latter half comprised of either tight spaces and environmental challenges sprinkled in, or at worst very linear corridors that give you no room for experimentation and force you into one specific approach if you want that stealth kill. Okay, but that alone doesn't warrant saying that the game is unfinished, right? Well, how about this? In Chapter 2, the game introduces a new mechanic, ceiling clinging, that allows Kurenai escape spikes that appear from the ground. Looks and feels pretty awesome and cinematic, no doubt about it. As you explore the level further, you may find a secret location where you will find a particular ninja tool, the iron claws that allow Kurenai to cling onto ceilings for longer. Sounds like a pretty neat upgrade, right? Well, get this. From that moment onwards, there is not a single instance where the ceiling clinging mechanic is utilized, rendering this tool absolutely useless. And no, there's no New Game Plus mode, so you can't utilize it on a new run either. Stuff like this really shows cracks in this game's identity as a video game and its cohesiveness. It also shows that the developers likely barely had any time playtesting it, which explains many of its gameplay downfalls. When playing Red Ninja, it often feels like the creators at Tranche Studio had a mishmash of cool concepts and ideas in their heads, but didn't have enough time or expertise to realize them into one complete package. It's especially sad to think about it, considering that this game had every chance of becoming a huge hit and a multi-entry franchise. But instead, for some reason, Red Ninja decided that it wants to take over the Prince of Persia crowd. Ugh. Can we talk about the platforming sections for a second? So, you have this wall running mechanic, which is pretty cool, right? Wall running is pretty much a staple in ninja action games. Well, remember what I said about the weird controls this game has, with all the camera issues, input delays and huge dead zones? Unlike Prince of Persia, which had a dedicated wall running button, Red Ninja decided that it wants to stand out and be more hardcore and realistic. Here's how you perform the wall running in this game. First, you have to initiate the running on the ground, ensuring you're running at pretty much a straight line to keep the momentum up. As you reach the top speed, you then push the analog stick diagonally towards the wall. If the stars align and you didn't lose speed while you were doing that, congrats, you've initiated the wall run. A couple issues become apparent though. First of all, it's not very obvious when Kurenai reaches the necessary speed threshold that allows for wall running. So very often I found myself just bumping on the wall because I did some micro-turn when accelerating, which slowed Kurenai down, or pushed the analog stick too sideways when trying to approach the wall because of the aforementioned dead zones issues. Secondly, sometimes you'll just be running in some cramped corridor near the wall, minding your business, and Kurenai suddenly starts wall running as if possessed by a demon. The emotions I felt when this happened were ranging from feeling silly to absolutely frustrated, as this situation sometimes resulted in our heroine falling in some deadly pit below and giving me the game over screen. Believe it or not, once on the wall your job is only halfway done. You also have to steer our busty young friend to make her run at the right angle and avoid her premature fall when doing the wall running. Some sections in Red Ninja End of Honor also require you to perform a complex set of actions, such as swinging on a rope first, landing on a wall, steering the initiated wall run at the right angle, and jumping off at the right time to go over some pit. Pretty Prince of Persia-like, right? Well, when having Prince of Persia level of environmental challenges bundled together with a character that controls like early PS1 era Lara Croft, it's a recipe for endless frustrations. I can't even count how many times I simply wanted to jump over some pit, but the game simply wouldn't register the jump during the run because of its ginormous input delay, and Kurenai would simply fall off. I promise you, in the footage you're seeing right now, I'm pressing the jump button literally a second before she reaches the edge, but she still keeps running to her death. And don't get me started on this gosh darn Buddha statue room. I'm sure those of you who played this game will instantly recognize it. I spent hours, literally 2.5 hours in this room. It's a huge gauntlet made out of several different platforming challenges bundled into one long section with no shortcuts in between, and with each next segment becoming more and more challenging than the last one. One mistake and you're back to the floor, forced to do it all over again. I gotta be honest, during this particular section I was very close to dropping this game. That's how frustrated I was. Who knows, hadn't I found a way to skip a good chunk of this level, maybe I would have dropped it. For real guys, this was the first instance in my 25 years gaming life when I specifically went on to look for a way to break a game sequence, just so I wouldn't have to deal with a frustrating section. And when I actually did, I was even more impressed with myself than that time when I finally beat Sephiroth on Proud Mode in KH2 when I was 13. Here comes the chicken and egg sort of question. Was it just a coincidence that Kurenai was designed in such a revealing and sexually attractive way? Or was it an elaborate scheme the developers implemented when realizing that they had been making an unbearably frustrating piece of media, not knowing how to fix it and deciding that it's easier to double down on the hotness factor, to make bad control-induced deaths feel less frustrating thanks to our heroine being easy on the eye? Nobody could say for sure now, but if that theory was proven right, I have to give it to the dev team. It kinda worked. Cancel me all you want, but there's nothing I can do about myself. I like beautiful women. And Kurenai is in fact a beautifully designed video game character that plays with the basest of my instincts. Both her outfits that you gain throughout the game work wonders. Kurenai is constantly walking on this edge between fetishes and perverseness, and she does so masterfully and with grace. Though even I can admit that sometimes the game baits you too hard to admire her revealing parts, and sometimes it can go into absurd territories. Because even I, a known admirer of female beauty, can admit that this game sometimes made me feel like a creep. Remember how I was saying that levels have verticality? Naturally, when on the ground, your video game instinct is to turn the camera around and check your surroundings, including upwards. Well, whenever you want to do that, Kurenai's beautiful rounded butt cheeks just so happen to always be your viewport's main and most focal point. And you know what's disappointing? Is that the developers had a goldmine of video game character in their possession, and if only they were just a little bit more elegant about utilizing her and making the actual game good, I firmly believe that Kurenai would be standing among the most prominent female video game characters of today, including the likes of 2B, Bayonetta, and Tifa Lockhart. Cause even if stripped of all sexuality, Kurenai is a legitimate strong, masterful, and overall badass character. Much like Bayonetta, she's conscious and not afraid of her sexuality, utilizing her male enemy's base instincts to her advantage. In gameplay terms, this manifests in the much advertised seduction mechanic, where you're able to lure your opponents, hypnotizing them with your beauty and making them come to you for the final deadly strike. Well, that is when the mechanic works, which is not very often. Few things can stand in Kurenai's way. Even when the space is too tight for her to fit into, she can voluntarily break her own shoulder bones to squeeze into tight spaces if it allows to infiltrate some warlord's palace. Can you show me another female video game character who could do something that hardcore without being a wimp about it? I don't think so. Throughout the story, we also get to know her as a person. Even though she's determined to be a perfect ninja tool for her master Chiyome, she still lets her humanity slip. Kurenai can be naive about the order of things around her, but she's also quite compassionate about her close allies. As the story progresses, we are introduced to her two main partners. A busty teenage ninja girl Akemi, who assists Kurenai throughout the game with information, tools, and even occasionally boss fights, and Zenzo, the emo guy from my high school years for whom Kurenai is hinted to have warm feelings. Can I just say that I love the side characters in this game? They feel like they could easily be an open world style Ninja Gaiden game side quest givers, or even be featured as extras in a Dead or Alive stage background. With Akemi in particular, Kurina ends up having a very sisterly bond, and when stuff happens, and it does happen, it leads to some gut-wrenching moments. Overall, the story in this game, although sparse, does include some great cinematic moments, some being very cool and well directed, and some just being plain confusing. With all that being said, how does Red Ninja End of Honor fare as a video game in general? Well, it's complicated. When you look at it from the bird's eye view, it has all the components to be considered a hidden gem or a cult classic. The levels have a nice variety of indoor and outdoor sections, and there's a fine balance between combat and platforming challenges. As the game progresses, you end up discovering new tools and creative ways to kill your opponents, like the non-lethal Tetsugen variant that allows for non-lethal close-range strikes, tying your opponents to in-game objects, including other enemies, and even cold-bloodedly hanging them over beams. This game also offers a set of unique boss fights which range from being fairly interesting to frustrating and convoluted messes of fights that will request of you to utilize the game's mechanics in ways you wouldn't even comprehend without looking up some guides. It's that particular moment when you actually go down and look at each of the game's elements up close where the cracks become obvious. And it's not just some micro frustrations that keep accumulating over time. Those issues are glaring and they're impossible to not notice. Red Ninja End of Honor really is jank. The controls are a mess, and some design decisions here are some of the worst and frustrating ones I ever encountered in gaming. And yet, I can't help but love this game. Despite how it feels, the stuff that is happening on screen is so cool and beautiful, you just end up saying to yourself, yeah dude, that's me doing that. And to be clear, it's not simply style over substance. This game legitimately has intricate mechanics and systems which, if you utilize them creatively, can lead to really unexpected yet awesome results. Sure, those moments are sprinkled in between gameplay elements full of despair that make you question if video games should have been invented as a medium. Yet I couldn't let go of this game until I beat it, and when I did, I felt hella satisfied. So, do I recommend playing through Red Ninja End of Honor? Here's the second instance of me stating one of the most run-down phrases of all time. But the answer is, it depends. Let me ask you this. Are you the person that can't stand old games because of clunky controls, awful camera, convoluted mechanics and over-sexualized women? Then absolutely not. For such viewers, I would suggest at best to watch some playthrough of this game instead. In the hands of an expert, it can easily be beaten in about 4 to 6 hours, with the story being worth a watch, mostly thanks to its vibe and oriental quirks. Don't expect some breakthrough in screenplay or anything. Now, are you the type of person who is a fan of the feudal Japan setting, mixed in with some magic stuff, high-octane ninja action, stealth mechanics and environmental challenges? Then I say, why not play Sekiro instead? It's an infinitely better game in all regards, and I promise you, you'll have a much better time with it, despite of how teeth-clenchingly difficult it can be. At least that game is challenging for the right reasons. Now, if you're that sort of gamer who would like to take the previous list of qualities and add to them charming PS2 aesthetics, a beautiful main heroine in revealing outfits, and you are not afraid of the aforementioned jank, then sure, Red Ninja is definitely worth a shot. Who knows, maybe you'll become a semi-fan of this game just like I ended up being, and we can all come along together, suck each other's dicks and cry about how this game had all the chances to be a rich, beautiful franchise, with us witnessing many more of Kurenai's misadventures on a more modern hardware with refined controls, mechanics and gameplay features. Alas, that universe is off limits to us, and what's left is the legacy that Red Ninja End of Honor left for us. And with that, I thank you for staying along and watching the video to this point. I'm very grateful for all the support and views that I've been getting on this series of videos that I've been making. If you enjoyed, your hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel really goes a long way and motivates me to keep going extra hard and produce more videos for all of you in hopefully a shorter span of time. We still have a long way ahead of us, so let me know what you think about this video in the comments section. And in the meantime, I'll be seeing you in my next video review of Mr. Mosquito. Do take care and see you soon.